The market street was alive with noise, vendors shouting, alien children running, and traders arguing over prices. In the middle of this busy place walked Daniel, a human traveler who had come to this world looking for trade and maybe a little adventure. He had seen many alien races in his journeys, but here everything felt different. The sky was green with two suns. The ground smelled of strange spices, and the people looked at him with suspicion. As he walked past the fruit stalls, his eyes caught something unusual. An old alien woman, bent and fragile, struggled with a heavy bag filled with stones and food. Her back was curved, her hands shook, and her steps were weak. She dropped one of her bags, and instead of helping, the crowd around her laughed or ignored her. No one cared. Daniel frowned. He had seen this kind of cruelty before, and it always left a bitter taste in his mouth. Without thinking much, he walked forward and bent down. "Let me help you," he said softly. The old alien granny looked up, her eyes glowing faintly for just a second. Daniel blinked. Maybe he imagined it. She gave him a weak smile. The bag was heavier than it looked, but Daniel was strong enough. He lifted it onto his shoulder and supported her with his other arm. The alien crowd stared, some whispering, some even shaking their heads like he was making a mistake. Daniel ignored them. "Where is your home?" he asked. The granny's voice was thin but kind. "Just down this road, traveler," she whispered. Together they walked slowly, Daniel noticing how her skin looked old but carried strange patterns, like faded tattoos or symbols that glowed. Faintly in the light, he thought maybe it was just his imagination. The walk was long and the market noise faded behind them. The road turned quiet, filled with empty houses and shadows. It felt strange, almost too quiet. Daniel felt the weight of the bag, but also the weight of something else, as if unseen eyes were following them. He shook the thought away. Finally, they reached a small, broken hut at the edge of the district. The roof was patched with old cloth, the door barely hanging on its hinges. Inside was darker than outside, with the smell of herbs and smoke. She invited him in, and though every instinct told him to be careful, Daniel stepped inside. The room was small, with shelves filled with jars of glowing powder, dried plants hanging from the ceiling, and a strange blue flame burning in a stone lamp. The air felt thick, heavy, yet calming. The granny asked him to place the bag down, and when he did, the floor creaked as if the house was alive. "Thank you, kind human," she said, placing her trembling hand on his for a moment. Daniel felt something shoot through him like a spark of energy. His heart raced, his vision blurred for a second. He pulled his hand back, confused. The granny smiled, but her smile looked both tired and knowing. "Are you all right?" Daniel asked, trying to hide his unease. She only nodded and told him to sit. She poured him tea from a pot, the liquid glowing faintly green. Daniel hesitated, but politeness forced him to sip. The taste was strange, bitter, but warm. It filled his chest with heat. Outside, the suns were setting, casting a strange golden glow through the cracks of the hut. Daniel felt his body relax, but at the same time he could not ignore the whispers. He thought maybe they came from the streets. But when he listened closely, the whispers seemed to come from the walls, soft, ancient voices, speaking in a language he could not understand. The granny sat opposite him, watching him with eyes that no longer seemed weak. They glowed faintly again, like stars buried in darkness. Daniel looked away quickly, convincing himself it was only the reflection of the lamp. He rubbed his forehead, telling himself he was just tired from traveling, but deep inside, something told him this was not an ordinary alien granny. Something about her touch, her eyes, and even the way the hut felt alive carried mystery and danger. Daniel had stepped into something far greater than just an act of kindness. When night finally came, Daniel decided to leave. The granny thanked him again, her voice soft but carrying strange power. He stepped out into the cool night air, but the feeling did not leave him. Every shadow seemed to move. Every whisper seemed to call his name. As he walked back to his lodging, he could not shake the image of her glowing eyes and the spark that ran through his body when she touched him. It was supposed to be simple kindness, yet something deep inside whispered that his life had just changed forever. and in the darkness behind him inside the hut, the granny stood taller than before, her back straight, her eyes glowing like fire, watching the human with a smile that was no longer weak but powerful. Daniel woke early the next morning, the strange whispers from last night still echoing in his ears. He had stayed in a small lodging house near the market, but even there, the shadows had not felt safe. He told himself it was only his imagination. Yet a part of him knew something had begun when he helped the old alien granny. The marketplace was crowded again, vendors shouting, buyers pushing, and children running between stalls. But when Daniel walked through, he noticed something different. The same crowd that had ignored the fragile granny now glanced at him with curiosity. Some even stepped back, as though he carried something dangerous. He felt their eyes follow him until he reached the edge of the street. He thought maybe he should forget about yesterday, just keep moving, just continue his journey. Yet his feet took him back down the quiet road, the one that led to the broken hut. He told himself he only wanted to check if she was all right. But deep down, he wanted answers. When he reached the hut, the door creaked open before he even knocked. The granny was waiting, her frail form wrapped in a cloak. "I knew you would come back," she said softly. Her eyes glowed faintly in the dim light, and this time Daniel did not dismiss it. He stepped inside. The room looked the same as before, jars of glowing powders, herbs hanging from the ceiling, and the blue flame still burning in the stone lamp. Yet Daniel noticed something new, strange symbols carved into the wooden walls. They pulsed faintly as if alive. His chest tightened as he stared at them. She poured tea again, the same glowing green liquid. Daniel hesitated. "What is this place?" he asked. His voice shook slightly. The granny looked at him for a long time, then placed the cup in his hands. "This is not just a hut, human," she whispered. "It is a sanctuary, a place older than this city itself." Daniel sipped, the warmth spreading through his chest again. But this time it was stronger. His arms felt light, his heart beat faster. The air around him thickened. He looked at his hand, and for a moment he thought he saw light moving under his skin like tiny sparks. He pulled his hand back quickly. "What did you do to me?" The granny reached across the table, her trembling hand brushing his. The moment she touched him, the sparks inside him flared, his vision blurred, and the hut seemed to shift. The shelves stretched, the walls glowed brighter, and the blue flame roared without fuel. Daniel gasped, struggling to breathe, but just as quickly it ended. The hut was quiet again, the flame soft, the jars still. Daniel's chest heaved as he tried to calm himself. The granny's eyes were glowing brighter now, no longer weak but strong. "I gave you a blessing," she said. "A gift for your kindness." Daniel shook his head. "That didn't feel like a gift. It felt like something was burning me from the inside." The granny smiled faintly. "That is how power feels at first. It is heavy, but soon you will understand." Daniel wanted to argue, to stand and leave. Yet something inside him stopped him. His body still hummed with strange energy, and his mind buzzed like a storm. He thought back to the market, how people had stepped away from him. Maybe they could sense this too. He leaned back, staring at the runes on the walls. They seemed clearer now, sharper, as though the tea and the touch had opened his eyes. "What are these symbols?" he asked. The granny turned her head slowly. "They are words of the ancients, the language of gods and spirits. They protect this place, they bind my power." Daniel frowned. "Bind your power? Why would you need that?" She said nothing for a moment, only looked at him with a tired smile. Then she leaned closer, her voice low. "Because power without chains is dangerous, and I have lived too long to forget that." The silence that followed was heavy. Daniel felt the air press on his shoulders. He wanted to stand, but his legs were weak. He gripped the edge of the table. "Who are you, really?" he whispered. Her answer came slowly. "I am what they call a keeper, a watcher. Some call me a goddess, some call me a curse. But to you, I am only the one you helped when no one else would." Daniel's skin crawled. He thought back to last Night, the whispers, the glowing eyes, the spark when she touched him. None of this was normal. He wanted to walk away, but a strange pull inside him told him to stay. The granny finally stood taller than before, her cloak slipping from her shoulders. The tattoos on her skin glowed like fire. Her voice was stronger, no longer the voice of a weak elder, but of someone who carried the weight of centuries. Your kindness woke something human, she said. You gave me strength, and in return I gave you a part of myself. Daniel's heart raced. He stared at her, unsure if he should be afraid or grateful. The room felt alive, the walls whispering. Again in that unknown tongue. He clutched his chest, feeling the spark still moving under his skin. He realized this was no ordinary blessing. That night when he finally left her hut, the air outside felt colder. The city lights seemed distant. Every step he took echoed louder than before, and though the streets were empty, Daniel knew he was not alone. Something walked with him now, unseen but powerful, and in the shadows of the hut, the granny watched with glowing eyes, whispering to herself in the old language. Her voice carried both joy and warning. The bond has begun, she said, and soon he will see the truth. Daniel walked the streets with heavy thoughts in his mind. The blessing the old alien granny had given him was not leaving his body. It was inside him now, humming, glowing, moving like hidden fire beneath his skin. Every time he touched something, he felt a spark. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw flashes of strange runes and visions of stars he had never visited. The people of the city sensed it too. When he passed by, they whispered and pulled their children close. Some even lowered their eyes, as if afraid of him. Daniel wanted to shout that he was the same man he had always been, but deep down he knew that was no longer true. He returned to the market, trying to distract himself, but no distraction worked. The air seemed to bend around him, and the more he tried to ignore it, the more the energy inside him pushed forward. As he reached for a fruit on a stall, the fruit burst in his hand, leaving only steam and a strange smell. The vendor shouted, but the crowd grew silent. Everyone stared at him with fear. Daniel dropped the fruit and walked away quickly, his heart racing. By evening, his steps once again took him back to the broken hut. He told himself it was madness, but he needed answers. He pushed open the door and found the granny sitting by the blue flame. Her eyes glowed brighter than before. You feel it now? She said calmly. The power inside you grows. Daniel stepped back. What did you do to me? He demanded. His voice echoed strangely in the small room as if the walls repeated his words. The granny looked at him with a long, slow smile. You accepted tea, you accepted touch, and in doing so you accepted me. The words sent a chill. Down his spine he wanted to argue, but his chest burned again. He looked at his hands, and this time he could see light crawling under his skin, lines of fire tracing symbols he did not know. He gasped and shook his hands, trying to throw it away, but it would not leave. The granny rose from her seat. Her back was no longer bent. Her body straightened, her steps graceful. Her skin glowed, faintly, and the faded tattoos from before now burned bright. In the lamplight she looked younger, stronger, like time itself had been pushed away. Daniel's breath caught. He had helped a fragile old woman, yet now he was staring at someone who looked like a goddess. This is impossible, he whispered. She only tilted her head. It is not impossible, human. It is truth. The weak shell you saw was only a mask. What you awakened is my true form. He staggered back. You were pretending? Why? She stepped closer, her voice soft but filled with power. Because no one shows kindness to the strong. They fear the powerful. They fear what they do not understand, but you helped when I was weak. And that is why you are different. The runes on the walls glowed brighter, filling the room with golden light. Daniel shielded his eyes. His chest pounded, and he felt his knees weaken. The granny, now radiant and ageless, placed her hand on his shoulder. The spark inside him flared so bright that he fell to his knees, gasping for breath. He looked up at her, his voice shaking. What are you? She bent low, her glowing hair brushing his face, and whispered, A demigoddess, cursed to wither unless someone breaks the chain with kindness. You broke it, Daniel, and now you carry part of me. Her words rang in his ears. A demigoddess, not just a granny. He had not saved a helpless elder. He had awakened something ancient, something powerful. His heart pounded with both fear and fascination. Outside, the city trembled with a sudden wind. The streets were empty, yet the sound of whispers grew louder. Daniel turned toward the door, but the whispers seemed to come from everywhere, like the whole world was speaking in that ancient tongue. He clutched his head, the energy inside him blazing. The demigoddess placed both her hands on his face. Her touch calmed the storm slightly. "Do not fight it," she whispered. "It will destroy you if you resist. Accept it, Daniel. Accept me." Daniel wanted to refuse. He wanted to run. But when he looked at her glowing eyes, something inside him broke. His resistance melted, his chest relaxed, and he let the fire move freely. It spread through him, filling his veins with light. His vision turned white. When the light faded, he was lying on the floor, breathing hard. The demigoddess stood over him, her form no longer old. Her beauty was otherworldly. Her presence filled the small hut like the weight of mountains. Daniel raised his hand and saw that his skin still glowed faintly. The sparks now calmer but permanent. "You are not the same anymore," she said softly. "The transformation has begun, and soon the world will see." Daniel closed his eyes, his mind spinning. He had wanted only to help, but instead he had stepped into the center of something vast. He was bound now, bound to a being who was both gift and curse. And though fear gripped him, part of him could not look away from her. The demigoddess who once looked like a fragile granny was now his shadow, his light, and maybe his doom. Daniel could not sleep that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her face. Not the fragile old woman he had helped in the market, but the radiant demigoddess who had revealed herself in the glow of runes. Her beauty was overwhelming, but it was her power that haunted him. It was alive inside him, pulsing like a second heartbeat. He sat on his small bed, staring at his hands. Sparks still moved faintly beneath his skin, glowing like embers in a dying fire. He clenched his fists, but the light would not vanish. The more he tried to deny it, the stronger it seemed to burn. He whispered to himself, "What have I gotten into?" Morning came, but it brought no peace. Outside, the city was restless. Traders argued, guards marched, and whispers filled the streets. He heard fragments of words. "The goddess has awakened. The human touched her. He is marked." The rumors spread faster than fire, and Daniel felt the stares of strangers pierce him wherever he walked. By midday, he gave up trying to hide. His legs carried him back to the hut at the edge of the district. When he entered, the air felt heavier than before. The walls glowed brighter, and the runes shimmered with golden fire. The demigoddess stood in the center of the room, her back straight, her presence filling the space. She looked at him, her glowing eyes soft, yet commanding. "You came back," she said. Her voice was no longer thin and frail. It was strong, rich, and carried a weight that pressed against his chest. Daniel swallowed hard. "I had no choice. I need to understand what you are, what you want from me." She walked closer, her steps silent, her cloak flowing like liquid shadow. "What I am," she whispered, "is older than this city. Older than your people's journeys through the stars. I am one of the last demigods, born of spirit and flesh, cursed to weaken as time passes. Unless," she paused, her gaze fixed on him, "unless true kindness breaks the chain." Daniel's throat tightened. "And my act of helping you, it broke it?" She nodded slowly. "Yes. Your hand lifted more than a bag of stones. It lifted the weight of centuries. You awakened me, Daniel, and for that I owe you a reward." The word reward made his stomach twist. He remembered the sparks, the pain, the visions of stars. "That didn't feel like a reward. It felt like I was burning alive," he said. She tilted her head, a faint smile touching her lips. "Power always burns at first, but in time it becomes strength, and you, human, will be stronger than you have ever dreamed." Daniel shook his head, stepping back. "I didn't ask for this, I just wanted to help." Her smile faded and her voice deepened. "Do you regret helping me?" The question cut through him. He remembered her bent figure in the market, the way everyone had ignored her. He remembered the kindness he had felt. "No," he admitted softly. "But I don't know if I can carry this." The demigoddess lifted. Her hand and the runes on the walls flared. The room filled with golden light, and in that light her form shifted. Her wrinkles vanished, her skin glowed smooth and flawless. Her eyes blazed like twin suns. Her hair flowed like rivers of fire. She was no longer pretending. This was her true form, radiant and terrible. Daniel stumbled back, shielding his face. Her presence was too much. It felt like standing before a storm. "Why me?" He shouted over the roar of power. "Why not someone else?" She moved closer, her glow dimming just enough for him to see her face clearly. "Because others would have feared me. Others would have walked away, but you chose to help. You proved yourself worthy." Her hand touched his cheek, and his body trembled as energy flowed through him. Not as painful this time, but still overwhelming. His chest rose and fell as if he had run for miles. He wanted to push her away, yet part of him leaned into her touch, drawn by a force he could not fight. "The reward I give," she whispered, "is both blessing and curse. With it you will see the unseen, hear the whispers of the ancient, and walk where mortals fear to tread. But it will drain you, it will test you, it will mark you as mine." Daniel's breath caught. "Mark me as yours? What does that mean?" She smiled faintly, her eyes glowing softer. "It means you are no longer alone, human. You are bound to me, and I am bound to you. Our fates are now woven together." He stepped back, his mind spinning. "I never agreed to this," he said, but she only looked at him with calm certainty. "You agreed the moment you lifted my burden. You agreed when you touched my hand. There is no going back." The walls whispered again, louder this time, ancient voices calling his name. Daniel pressed his hands to his ears, but the voices were inside him now. He dropped to his knees, gasping. His vision swirled with fire and stars. He felt himself slipping, falling, until her arms wrapped around him, holding him steady. Her voice filled his mind, both gentle and powerful. "Do not fear, Daniel, I will guide you. You gave me kindness, and now I give you destiny." As his strength faded, he looked up at her, the demigoddess glowing like a star. Her beauty was unbearable, her power unstoppable, and yet, in that moment, he felt a strange peace. He realized he had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. The fragile granny was gone. The demigoddess stood revealed, and she had claimed him as her own. The night was heavy with silence. Daniel followed the demigoddess through the broken streets. His heart pounded as each step took him further from the city and closer to something unknown. She no longer wore the shape of a fragile granny. She walked tall and radiant, her cloak flowing behind her, the runes on her skin glowing faintly. In the moonlight, Daniel wanted to turn back, but his legs carried him forward. A strange pull tied him to her, stronger than fear, stronger than reason. She led him into the hills beyond the market, where ruins of old temples stood half buried in dust. The air smelled of age and forgotten prayers. They entered a stone doorway, its arch covered in ancient symbols. As soon as Daniel stepped inside, the walls began to glow, whispering in that same old language he had heard before. His chest burned, the sparks inside him flaring with each word. He clenched his fists. "Where are we?" he asked. His voice echoed like it belonged to someone else. The demigoddess turned to him, her eyes shining like fire. "This is the chamber of binding," she said. "Here, gifts are completed. Here, rewards are given." Daniel frowned. "Reward? What reward?" She smiled faintly, her expression unreadable. "The reward of connection. The reward of my essence." Daniel's breath grew shallow. He had already felt her power burning inside him. He wasn't sure he wanted more, but he also knew he couldn't resist. The chamber doors sealed shut behind them, and the runes blazed brighter, filling the air with golden fire. In the center of the chamber stood a circular stone platform, covered in carvings. The symbols matched the ones on her skin, pulsing like a heartbeat. She stepped onto the platform and beckoned him forward. "Stand with me," she commanded. Her voice carried no room for argument. Daniel hesitated, but the pull inside his chest dragged him closer. His feet moved as if under someone else's control. When he stood beside her, the platform lit up, light racing around the carvings until the whole circle blazed. Daniel felt the heat rise, his skin tingling. She placed her hands on his chest. Her touch was gentle, but the power that surged into him was not. It struck like lightning, spreading through every vein. His knees buckled, his breath caught. He gasped, trying to push her away, but she held him firm. Her glowing eyes locked onto his. "Do not fight it," she whispered. "This is your reward." But it felt like no reward Daniel had ever imagined. His body shook, his strength draining. He felt light leaving him, pouring out of him and into her. His vision blurred, spots of white dancing before his eyes. The demigoddess grew brighter as he grew weaker. Her skin glowed with fire. Her form, radiant and young, her voice filled the chamber, chanting words older than time. Daniel fell to his knees, gasping for air. He clutched at her arm, but his strength was fading. "Stop," he whispered, his voice hoarse. "You're killing me." She looked down at him, her glowing hair falling like rivers of light. "No, human," she said. "I am completing the bond. Without it, you would wither. With it, you will endure." But Daniel did not feel like he was enduring. He felt like he was breaking. His arms trembled. His chest felt hollow. Every breath grew heavier. He wanted to scream, but no sound came. His head dropped forward, his strength almost gone, and then he saw her. Not with his eyes, but with his mind. She stood in another form, not radiant, not cruel, but sorrowful. "Do not fear, Daniel." Her voice echoed inside him. "What I take, I also give. What drains you now will return, but you must accept it." Daniel shook his head weakly. He wanted to reject her, to escape. But even as his body collapsed, a strange calm filled his mind. The fire inside him stopped burning and instead began to flow. It moved like water, smooth and endless, wrapping around his heart. His vision cleared for a moment, and he saw her clearly, glowing brighter than the sun. The chamber trembled, dust falling from the ceiling. The runes flared so bright that Daniel had to close his eyes. When he opened them again, he was lying flat on the stone floor, his chest heaving, his body weak, his skin pale but still glowing faintly. The demigoddess stood tall above him, no longer frail. Her beauty was unbearable, her power unstoppable. She looked reborn, her curse broken, her strength renewed. She gazed down at him, her voice soft. "It is done." Daniel struggled to sit up, his arms shaking. "What did you do to me?" he asked, his voice cracked with exhaustion. She knelt beside him, brushing her glowing fingers against his cheek. "I shared my essence with you, human. You are mine now, as I am yours. The bond is sealed." His eyes widened. "You drained me." She nodded. "Yes, and I gave you part of myself in return. You are weaker tonight, but tomorrow you will rise stronger. You are no longer only human, Daniel. You are my vessel." Daniel's heart froze at the word. "Vessel?" She smiled faintly. "Do not fear, you will understand in time, for now rest. The bond has just begun." He closed his eyes, his body sinking against the cold stone, his thoughts scattered like smoke. Yet even in his weakness, he felt it. A thread tying him to her, invisible but unbreakable. And as darkness claimed him, he heard her whisper in the ancient tongue, her voice filled with triumph and promise. "The dangerous reward has been given, and soon the galaxy will tremble." Daniel drifted in darkness. His body felt weightless, like he was floating in an endless sea without waves. He tried to move his arms, but there was no strength. He tried to open his eyes, but he realized they were already open. There was nothing to see but blackness. At first he thought he was dead. The draining ritual, the unbearable pain, the collapse on the stone floor. Maybe it had killed him, but Then a faint light appeared in the void, distant and flickering. He felt himself drawn toward it. Pulled by an invisible thread, the light grew brighter, spreading like a star in the night. Around it, shapes began to form, ancient symbols glowing like fireflies. They circled him, whispering in the same forgotten tongue he had heard before. This time, however, he understood fragments. Words like bond, destiny, and eternity rang inside his skull. His chest ached. He clutched it, gasping for air, but in this place there was no breath. His body was not flesh here, it was only light. The sparks he had seen under his skin before now glowed openly, running through his veins like rivers of fire. Then he saw her. The demigoddess appeared in the void, but not as he had seen her in the chamber. Here she was both terrifying and beautiful, her form vast, her eyes like galaxies. Her voice echoed not through the air but inside his very soul. "Daniel," she whispered, her tone soft yet heavy with power. "Do you feel the bond?" He tried to answer, but his voice cracked. "What is this place?" She reached her hand toward him, her fingers stretching across the void. "This is the space between life and death, between what you were and what you are becoming. Here," the bond speaks, clearer, "here you will decide if you accept me fully or die resisting." Daniel's heart twisted. "Die? I thought you said this was a reward." Her expression softened, though her eyes still burned. "It is a reward, but not without cost. Every gift of the divine demands a sacrifice. You are human, fragile, yet you touched me without fear. You gave kindness where others gave cruelty that opened the path. Now you must choose whether to walk it." He shook his head, fear rushing through him. "I never asked for this. I never wanted power. I just wanted to help an old woman in the market." She smiled faintly, the kind of smile that carried both sorrow and wisdom. "And that is why you are worthy, Daniel. The ones who desire power should never hold it. The ones who give freely are the only ones who can bear it. That is why fate led you to me." The void trembled around them, the glowing symbols spinning faster. Daniel felt his strength fading even here, as if the choice itself was draining him. His chest burned, his veins blazing with light. He fell to his knees, gasping, I can't do this." Her towering form lowered until she knelt before him. Her glowing hand reached out, brushing against his cheek. "You can, but you must let go of your fear. If you fight me, the bond will shatter, and your human body will wither. You will die. But if you accept me, you will live, changed but alive." Daniel's mind raced. He thought of Earth, of his people, of his own small, ordinary life before this moment. Was he ready to give all of that up? Was he ready to be tied to a demigoddess forever? The void shifted again, and for a moment he saw visions. He saw himself walking among alien worlds, fire and lightning in his hands. He saw enemies falling before him. He saw the demigoddess standing at his side, radiant and unstoppable. But he also saw himself alone, drained, his humanity slipping away piece by piece. His voice cracked. "If I accept, will I still be me?" She gazed into his eyes. "You will always be you, but you will also be more. You will carry my essence, my strength, my curse. But your choices will still be your own. That is the truth of the bond." The void pulsed, the light intensifying. Daniel realized he had no more time. His body was fading, his edges blurring into smoke. He could feel himself slipping toward nothingness. The demigoddess extended her glowing hand again. "Choose, Daniel. Reach for me and live, or refuse and vanish into the dark." His heart raced. Fear screamed at him to run. But another voice whispered inside him, the same voice that had told him to help her in the market. It told him that sometimes the smallest act of courage opened the greatest doors. Daniel's hand shook, but slowly he reached forward. His fingers brushed hers, and in that instant the void exploded with light. Energy roared through him, filling every crack, every shadow. Every part of him burned with fire, yet also with peace. He cried out, not in pain but in release. The chains of fear broke, replaced by the certainty of the bond. When the light faded, Daniel lay on the stone floor of the ritual chamber once more, his body weak but alive. The demigoddess knelt beside him, her hand still holding his. Her eyes glowed with satisfaction. "You chose," she whispered, "and now nothing will be the same." Daniel woke slowly. His body was heavy, his chest rising and falling with effort. He was lying on the cold stone floor of the ritual chamber. The glow of the runes had faded to a soft hum, like embers after a great fire. For a moment he thought it had all been a dream, but then he felt it, the bond inside him alive and burning like a second heartbeat. The demigoddess stood over him, her figure radiant, her power undeniable. She was no longer the fragile granny he had once seen in the market. She was young, beautiful, and terrible. Her skin glowed faintly, her hair shone like threads of fire, her eyes carried galaxies within them. Daniel tried to sit up, but his arms shook. The strength he once had was gone, drained into her. Yet when her hand touched his shoulder, a rush of energy surged back into him, not as much as before, but enough to breathe, enough to move. "You survived," she said softly. Her voice filled the chamber, warm and commanding at once. Daniel swallowed hard. "I thought I was dead." She smiled faintly. "Between life and death, you chose me. That choice saved you. Now you belong to me." The words cut through him. He wanted to argue, but deep inside he knew they were true. The bond tied them together, invisible but unbreakable. His heart beat in rhythm with hers. His breath followed the rise and fall of her chest. He whispered, "What happens now?" She knelt beside him. Her glowing hand brushed his cheek. "Now you walk as more than human. You carry my essence. You are part of me, and I am part of you. This galaxy will fear you, for it will see me in your eyes." Daniel shook his head, fear and confusion mixing inside him. "I don't want to be feared. I just wanted to help." Her gaze softened, though her power did not. "And that is why you are worthy. The ones who never seek power are the ones who deserve it most. But the galaxy does not understand kindness. It understands strength. It understands fear. Together, we will give them both." Her words echoed in his mind. The thought of ruling or commanding frightened him. He had never been a leader, never dreamed of destiny. But the bond left no space for denial. Already he could feel her whispers in his thoughts, guiding him, shaping him. The chamber trembled. The runes on the floor flared again, though softer than before. The demigoddess wrapped her arms around him, holding him close. For a moment Daniel felt warmth instead of fire. Her embrace was not cruel, it was almost tender. Yet even in that tenderness he felt his energy pulled, his body weaker. He gasped, "You're draining me again." She held him tighter. "Yes, but I give it back. You are my vessel, Daniel, and I am your goddess. You will never stand alone, but you will never stand free either." His chest ached, but he did not pull away. Somewhere deep inside he understood the truth. This bond was no prison, it was a path. It was dangerous, but it was also powerful, and part of him wanted to see where it led. Her lips brushed his forehead, a kiss that seared like fire and soothed like water. His body shivered, every nerve alive. The chamber's light dimmed as her power flowed into him, mixing with his own life force. The bond tightened, complete. When she pulled back, her eyes glowed brighter than ever. "It is finished," she whispered. "The bond is sealed. You are mine, Daniel, and through you, the galaxy will remember me." Daniel's breathing slowed. He felt both drained and renewed, weaker than ever yet stronger than he could imagine. The paradox burned inside him. He whispered, "What am I now?" Her smile was soft, almost human. "You are still you, but you are also me. You are the bridge between mortal and divine, the first of my chosen." He looked into her eyes, searching for lies, but saw only truth, frightening and beautiful. He realized that no matter what he said, no matter what he did, there was no escape. The bond was eternal. His kindness had awakened her, and now she had claimed him forever. Outside, The ruins shook with a sudden wind. The city below stirred, people looking to the hills as a strange light glowed in the sky. Whispers spread through the streets. The goddess has returned and the human stands beside her. Daniel stood weakly, her arm supporting him. Together they stepped out of the chamber. The night sky burned with 2 moons, and for the first time, Daniel saw the stars differently. They were not distant anymore. They were waiting. The demigoddess leaned close, her voice a whisper only he could hear. "You belong to me now, human, and the galaxy will soon learn what that means." Daniel closed his eyes, his heart torn between fear and wonder. He had only wanted to help, but that single act had changed everything. The fragile granny was gone. The seductive demigoddess was reborn, and her final embrace had bound his fate forever.